Hello, hello, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Submitted for Your Approval, where we talk about cards that recently got accepted into Collective Card Game and cards that could be in next week. Who knows? I'm joined, as always, by my faithful co-host, Grief.
Howdy, folks.
And today we have, as a guest, we have BGG.
BGG 1996. You might know me from the Discord, and I have a number of cards in the game by now.
Yeah, week 5 was your first, week 5 of
That's when I joined the game, was the 5th week of the game. I entered with Wine in Front of Me. It's one of my favorite cards this day. Well, I don't like how it's just burned, but other than that, I love everything about it.
One of those cute mind game cards, which we're actually going to talk about, I think, one of those today. So without any further ado, I think let's get to it. First thing I wanted to talk about, we want to talk about a couple submissions that made it in last week. And the one I wanted to talk about is Hatespawn. Hatespawn is a 3/1 3-drop strength goblin from Degenesis. It says at the end of turn, deal 1 damage to a random enemy unit with the lowest HP. When this kills a unit, create a Hatespawn in play. I had the wonderful pleasure of being able to play this in Sentinels. It is super fun, and I am very worried about what it's going to do to the meta. Because we already had a lot of hate for 1 HP units. This is more of that. What do you think?
Potentially very strong.
Gentlecat hates the card, if I remember correctly, but he also hates Forest to Cinder and everything else that basically destroys anything that has to do with aggro burn, what his main playstyle is. So yeah, Hatespawn actually fulfills multiple uses as a control tool in red, as well as a pretty good aggro tool for Heldam that allows you to get by most of the blockers because you're just pinging or killing most of the token-ish cards. So if you're basically a token deck or rely on multiple tools that have just 1 or 2 HP, while you have 1 or 2 Hatespawn on board, well, those little damn buggers will multiply quite a lot while clearing your board. Funny enough, in the few tests I've used it for testing out legacy decks, it didn't really perform too well.
Yeah, I bet with enough removal in the suite that because this is itself very fragile to stuff, it would be pretty bad. Against a mirror, this is interesting though. Like having Hatespawns versus Hatespawns because they're constantly bringing each other back, basically. BGG, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's kind of an all or nothing kind of card. The interesting thing about it, it's really good against 1 HP units. So if you think about if you're having to face against often Ash aggro deck with, basically everything has 1 HP, this is basically God. This is like, oh yeah, let me just kill your unit and also make 2 3/1s, and all those 3/1s are going to kill your units and your aggro, so you have no way of dealing with my Hatespawns. So 3 mana, play card, win game, I win. Sounds great. But at the same time, like you play against Dot, or like another strength deck, they don't have a 1 health unit in play. It's really awkward to play this, especially if it's a mind deck that isn't aggro, like a Virtic deck would be, just easily kill this off. So it's not really a proactive card. It's something you can do, and like if I saw a lot of Ash Gertie in the meta, I'd really want to put this card in any strength deck or any Kyungmi deck. You can also give it Duelist. I don't know, I haven't tried that. Kyungmi is interesting. I've just started trying with Kyungmi.
Yeah, honestly, my thoughts for synergies are all in Spirit, sadly. Deadly Nightshade is obviously the big one. So you can take down those bigger units, even though they're all low HP, you get a free kill. And then the other one I thought of is maybe just like a Heartbeat, just to get... or something.
I think
to give
this
it a
is
point
more
of
a card
HP.
you...
From what I've known, you can actually trigger it off attacks too, because when it kills on attack, it also,
yeah.
So that's why duelists and stuff like that would also function with it. So slap a lightning rapier on it, duel stuff, and get a new unit.
That's why I brought up the Kyungmi active could put it, give duelists to it very consistently, because turn 3 you play this, and then you can immediately level up that turn, give this +1/+1 duelist, kill some, or have it end of turn, deal a damage, kill something. That could be like pretty good for, you know, what your options are, because you're not really restricted by color in that kind of deck. But I think this is less a card you try and build your deck around and more a card you think, all right, I'm seeing a lot of 1 HP things. I'm going to put this in my deck. And that's really nice for Strength to have, because before you had to run like Moonlight's Judgment in your Strength deck if you wanted to deal with this, these aggressive decks. And now you can just play this guy. And sure, it doesn't do much against like control decks or dot decks, but then you're happy because then you're not dying. And if you're a deck that struggles against those swarmy kind of Bluck and Ashgurdy decks, then you're like, great, Hatespawn, you are not needed this game. And if it is needed, it just wins you the game.
Well, I wouldn't really put it like that, because considering that we have Master Jouster, we have other duelists, you can actually set up multiple boards where you put units into a 1 or slight 2 HP point. You could actually run it side by side in a more controllish deck with Skinworm, where now multiple ticks work. If you kill a card that was targeted by the spawn, you can actually now get your Skinworm back, maybe get a spawn out of it, or just set up your set up your Skinworm so you get returns like that. So you have multiple users even if your matchup isn't just tokens.
That's true. You can still find a few ways to make use of this against those slower matchups. But what I'm saying is that it really shines just as a tool to defeat those aggressive strategies.
More 1 HP hate.
Or just be an aggressive strategy, because you just play this on 3, and if everything is this aggressive thing, like they have to deal with this, well, then they're not dealing with your other.
Yeah, I did want to give a shout out to Fadus for the art. At his request, I'm actually going to be posting a link to his artist page in the description for the video. Come check it.
Looks amazing.
All sorts of great stuff for this game, and pretty soon he'll be coming out with his own realm he's been talking about, so we'll be able to see more of those awesome Fadus art. There we go. This is great. What Grief wanted to talk about. Ooh, this is fun. Wilting Memories is a 6-drop mind action with all units in play return to their owner's hand, and they gain, if this isn't played before end of next turn, banish this. So this is fun. So like aggro decks or decks have a lot of like cheap units that are going to get 3 or 4 of their units back, versus units that are players that have invested maybe like 6 mana into a unit might not be able to get their unit back.
I think this is busted.
Is it?
I don't know. Like I think about this and I think, okay, well, what does this effectively do? It kills everything, but they get to keep a little bit of value in their hand. So I think, okay, well, what is the value of a card that just kills everything? Oh, Cataclysm. What's the cost of Cataclysm? 13. Oh, so this is less than half that cost. And it has the addendum that they do actually potentially get to keep a few of their cards, but that's still a 7 cost reduction over what Cataclysm is. And even if you say, oh, Cataclysm's overcosted by 3 mana, that's a lot of cost reduction. And you can think of, and the way I see it, if you have a board wipe, that is a lot more powerful the cheaper and cheaper it gets, because that's the sooner it can be online against something that's trying to kill you. And in the sort of deck that this is trying to be in, like a control deck that would want to just control the board very strongly and let your opponent have absolutely no fun before winning with some guaranteed combo, it's just a very powerful tool for those sorts of decks which just try to control the board very strongly, like Vertic.
One thing you got to remember, though, is you are investing 6 into this thing, which means that as far as the getting my units back into the board thing, your opponent's probably going to be 6 mana ahead of you unless you're being really, really clever about how you're interacting with you.
Ahead of me? I don't need to have a board. They try to make a board. I get rid of their board. And then eventually I win with something like the Dreamer.
Okay, I see your point.
I mean, I don't know. I'd have to think about making the deck in order to be like, okay, well, here's why it's busted, and then I just win with it, but or I don't.
What are your thoughts, Grief?
But it seems really strong.
First of all, let's just put the Cataclysm argument to the side, because Cataclysm hasn't been our baseline for an actual potentially really good board wipe for like Earthquake since Earthquake hit. So Earthquake is a 7-cost board wipe, which is also played at 9 in Permo or even at 8 in Mind, because it's such a good board clear actually, and is basically considered our baseline for board wipes currently. And even then, at a higher cost, we have Geschlorp, which is technically a one-sided board wipe with upside for you, because you're giving your opponent just
garbage.
Yeah. So in that regard, Wilting Memories, which is technically a more interactive board wipe because it just returns cards to hand, is quote-unquote fairer. But you have to consider this will just hit control decks, or will be played at 8 even in Permo control, because this card fits basically fog ideas. We have Down and Dirty, we have in Legacy Gift of Peace, we have Arcane Scriptures. This will just hit the same decks. You can basically stall out the game, as BG already said, so you basically get to your combo or burn your opponent out, or even win via a Dralox, because this card can also fit into Dralox burn decks.
Yeah.
Now you're just returning most of the stuff that they have in hand already back to hand, and if the hand is full, they discard what is too much.
Yeah, if you're clogging their hand, that's actually probably the way to get the best value out of this. I agree. But that 6 mana investment is something to kind of look at, because people can play around this. This is interactive as opposed to like Rumbling. You're not interacting with a Rumbling Earthquake. Rumbling Earthquake's interacting with you.
With Rumbling Earthquake, if you don't commit to the board and you have just like 2 of the 8/8 worms, then Earthquake can't kill those. This can deal with anything.
Yeah.
You could have 30 health, doesn't matter, back to your hand. So in that sense, it could even potentially be stronger than just straight up dealing.
In that sense, it's basically a hard removal when your opponent has the initiative and plays or commits something big to the board, even at smaller boards. But there are also some other occasions where this is basically just trying to be a board stall, even at small boards where they can just play out the most cards they have. Because in some situations, you have to go on the initiative and bounce for 6 and cannot really reestablish a board. They may do. In red, you could basically can deal with that situation where you're playing a Sloth on this turn before, playing this the next one. Now the entire board is cleared.
Okay, but what if they play Amnesia Mage, return this to their hand, play Wilting Memories, return Amnesia Mage to their hand, next turn, play Amnesia Mage, return this to their hand, play this again, returning Amnesia Mage to their hand.
I think they leave this ability in their hand.
Yep.
They're going to gain that permanently, so that chain isn't going to work indefinitely.
That's good, at least.
Yeah. Saving Graces. Okay.
I'm just saying, Amnesia Mage is a thing. This is a control card.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to move forward to this.
Yeah, right.
BGG's pick from the.
That's my pick.
Dragons.
I'm a slight amount of biased.
Oh, this is actually his card.
Yes.
Dragonspeaker Javynn is a 2-drop strength 3/2 human knight from Talira. Javynn always knows when the top card of your deck is a dragon, and currently it isn't. Active, pay 2 mana to draw a card. If you drew a dragon, give it +1/+1 and ready this. So, just to make sure I understand this correctly, that little reminder text there is going to kick in
Always,
including on the battlefield, which means your opponent can read it.
Your opponent can read it, yes.
So this is affected a little bit by stuff like mill strategies. I like the indicator effect, by the way. I think that's super cool. That's definitely a bunch of design space that needs to kind of be explored. And I guess it's kind of hard to take advantage of unless you're dedicated already.
Well, one thing I like about that style of effect is you can just have Javynn in your hand, and then if you have that other card that also got in this week, I could only pick one, but there's this other card that if you draw a dragon, it gives a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
You can just have Javynn in hand, and he will let you know when you can safely activate that other card. So it's you don't even have to play him. You can just have him in your hand and look at it, and it'll give you useful information. Someone also brought up the idea of using this to proc the effect of Fortune Dragon. If you have like dragons only being the odd costs in your deck, you can play a Fortune Dragon at the exact right moment and say, aha, my top card is an odd cost card. There's a lot of design space on manipulating the top card of your deck, which is where this kind of goes into. I'm looking to explore that more in the future, but I'm also just interested in seeing how this can play out with the cards that are already in the game. I specifically want to point out that is an active with a paid cost. There are a few cards in the game already that can synergize very heavily with that. I'm talking about Throne Princess Ellis and the Chariot of Galace, with a very strong active effect. And because this is an active that if you keep drawing dragons, you can activate it over and over and over again, it is very strong with those two abilities. The first one will decrease the cost of this. So this could potentially be active, pay 0 mana to draw a card if it's a dragon repeat. It could potentially if you have Galace out, or multiple copies, it will buff your entire board by 1 health repeatedly. I think there's a lot of potential, especially in Kyungmi, who already has so much natural synergy due to the way her hero active counts as an active for the purpose of the chariot.
So this is cool. This is bringing in tribal dragons into kind of the spotlight and giving them the tools they need. And since a lot of dragons were already about kind of deck thinning, I think this is definitely a neat tool. What do you think, Grief?
I think everything that was to be said about the card was has been said. The thing is, I still don't really see dragons being a deck you will build in the near future that is quote-unquote viable or competitive. So it remains to be seen how much this support will do in the future.
Let me point this out. Even if you have 0 dragons in your deck, this is a card that says pay 2 mana to draw a card as an active. That is not something we've seen before. We've had cards that have had active draw a card with, I think Wishing Well is a very old card that did that. There's also Black Market was a 3 mana 0/3. This is 2 mana, it's a cheaper card. It does have a cost on the active, but that can be reduced.
Yeah.
So there's still the potential to run this with very few dragons, just very dragon light, just like Dragon Egg, which has an active and nothing else, or absolutely no dragons and just using this for its potential to draw cards.
And that's neat. And that's kind of a tool I think Strength can use, especially in like aggro builds, if it can find the mana to do it. Or if they're running like Ellis, like you said. So yeah, I think that's super interesting. I actually kind of wanted to talk specifically about that first ability because that's really interesting design space. A little bit I kind of wanted to comment about some of the recent stuff on the Reddit. So we got an influx of 2 or 3 new players that I've been kind of watching a little bit their designs on the Reddit. The designs err on the side of a little bit way too complex. But we're kind of pulling them into the fold on the Discord, seeing if we can help them out because we're seeing some really cool, like really like creative flavor and art, which that is something I just gotta love, and some really interesting mechanical space, which is that's really what I like the most. So I wanted to talk about this design. It's very goofy, but it's cool.
And it's busted.
Busted. It's definitely not getting in the game, but I don't want to make my show just about cards that are getting in the game, okay? I thought it was cool. I want to talk about it. This is Old Man Marshwiggle. It is a 1-drop spirit 1/1 typeless thing. Big whoops there. But anyways, it has initiative, then it's intargetable. If not, it can't attack. And Entomb, put a Wiggle Zerker and a Wiggle Stick in hand. What is a Wiggle Zerker? That's the thing that looks kind of like the previous thing, except now it's a 2/1. It has Duelist for some reason and can't attack. Rage, silence this card, but it still keeps can't attack. And a wiggle stick. Now, this is actually where I think this is the only spot where it's really that broken. Is wiggle stick is just grant a card untargetable, and it's a 1-drop, and that is busted. That is so busted. But okay, so Wodehouse Clemens. I wanted to say I like this art. This is cute. This reminds me of Opera and his kind of style of doing kind of the vectorized graphic type thing. So like, this looks like, you're going to tell me in a second, right? Shinbone Jouster is what it looks like. But a little bit side grade kind of to Shinbone Jouster.
What?
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's a little complicated, definitely.
Like a lot of these things, like, okay, so there's a 2/1 and it has a rage effect. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the rage effect? Is it like that chicken card that if you manage to get it off, it gives you, no, it says silence this card. Okay. But it still has, so it silences it, but it keeps half the effect. It's like, it's never going to happen. And if it does happen, it's never going to matter.
And also, it's the thing where you want to kill it because you want to get the Wiggle Zerker, but you can't just kill it because it can't attack most of the time. And I don't know. I think it's interesting flavor, though, that it's the old crotchety old man. Just, you got to look at the different directions this is pulling it in. So it doesn't want to... It wants to die, but it can't die. It doesn't have a means to kill itself. It has this really, really OP thing when it does kill itself. Untargetable. By the way, guys, for the new players, untargetable is the most powerful keyword in the game, I think.
Does exemplar still count as a keyword?
I haven't. Well, there's no designs that use it.
Yeah, so there aren't. So
it can be granted off of something, but untargetable is the most powerful keyword in the game, and just giving it away for that cheap is big mistake. That's probably worth like 6. What would you price that effect at, actually, Grief?
First of all, I would probably try to thin down the design or find a direction that's more or less more fitting, okay? Because this is, let's be honest, a more awkward and unfocused version of what another card was that was introduced into the game this week. The Frogium
Hoppus. Yeah, I agree.
Exactly. Which left behind a unit that was a duelist that had its own uses. That this basically says, okay, good. I have a weird unit that if it dies, keeps the unit behind. That's just one of duelist potential removal that doesn't do anything else. And an overpowered stick that gives anything untargetable, even off color. You would use that stick. You would use that thing. Yeah. But the silence effect only interests you for the graveyard because it probably dies anyway when it uses its duelist effect. And so it's a completely useless unit in a graveyard. Same-ish for the first one, but, well, if you can reanimate it, you get more sticks out of it. That's basically it. In that regard, I would probably head into the card lab as the person that the creator already did, and probably run the card. I run the card down there. The thing is, you people edge on the risk of overcomplicating their effects, and that's coming from people who have been with this community for over 2 years. And yes, I design overcomplicated or even completely busted cards, but then again, try to find at least one design aspect or goal that you want to head to and try to design focused on that. That's basically the same recommendation we gave Oscar regarding their cards.
Yeah, so kind of watch for the different directions your card might be pulling in. Try to pick a focused direction. Type lines are important. And
no, they aren't.
It matters for people's feelings, and you got to remember feelings are important in design.
I don't care about people's feelings. I don't like people.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say it because I'm the host of the show.
Stones are good.
Type lines matter, and untargetable is very, very powerful, and watch where you use
And
it.
make the wiggle stick an equipment to get even more going on.
Oh, yeah. Technically, that should be an equipment. Okay.
Yes, that's the biggest problem with that card.
Probably.
It needs to have the type lines.
Okay, another one of our newer designers, he deliberately switches his name up. I don't know why. It makes him happy. The O Wisp is a 3-drop mine 0/4 specter.
Mm-hmm.
This beautiful art of a little flame and a tree. And it has active, deal 1 damage to a target and give them at the start of turn, deal 1 damage to this card. I helped kind of like steer this a little bit because they were trying to have it like be that the effect only worked for the damage thing only worked for 3 turns, which was like, it's so weak anyway. I mean, they're just going to slowly bleed. Well, but the bleeding, you got to bear in mind, it's either relevant now or it's relevant way, way, way down the line. And so I don't really think it matters if it has like a line or something like that.
I think you don't know the different use cases for this particular effect. First of all, this kills deadly units.
Yeah.
Because they damage themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even consider that.
Second of all, you can target your own rage units.
Yes, and the rage unit thing is good. Of course, you got to keep your rage unit alive, which is tricky. Part of the reason I wanted to bring this up, for those of you who don't know, we have a very active Discord community, and we have this meme about this card is very effect is busted compared to Telepath. So I wanted to compare it to Telepath.
Telepath is it's a 4-cost 3 HP.
It's a 4-cost 0/3 with just active deal 1 damage. So this is definitely a power creep Telepath. Notice it's 1 cheaper. It's got 1 more power point of HP, so the HP and cost are now flipped. And it deals more damage. And I think this effect is really cool. You just brought up how flexible it is and kind of the different builds you can do in it. What do you think about it, BGG?
Well, I don't know. Well, it's interesting that it's, repeatable. Like every turn you can just use this. All right, deal 1 damage to that, deal 1 damage to that, deal 1 damage to that. Like if your opponent's playing Ashgurdy aggro, you're still like, okay, bing, 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 die, die, die. So it's also kind of interesting. It's a 0/4, so it's susceptible to duelist. It's there aren't a lot of units that are just like just like a 0/4, and then they have like value as long as you keep them alive. It goes into that sort of type of card. It's kind of hard for me to say because it's kind of hard for me to imagine. All right, well, how easy is it for my opponent to deal with it? Well, it depends on what removal tools they have, right? Like maybe they just have a Werewolf and it smacks into this, and you didn't even get to use the effect except once. But even if you use the effect once, it's at least guaranteed 1 damage. And I kind of want to compare it to the Starving Skinworm, right? Because that's a 1/3 ambush. And then you use the active, and it's basically that effect. But that one, it's a limited use of this. And this one, your Will-O-Wisp would stay there, stay alive, for only 1 more mana than the Skinworm, which I think is a pretty good baseline for a card. I use that in several different decks as just generally good 2-drop. So this would lose the ambush, and it would gain the ability to just continuously target different things, which I think, and it's also 1 damage immediately. Skinworm started at the end of the turn. This one does 1 damage and also at the end of every turn.
It's going to be pretty much on pace with the other, except for that first turn, like you said.
Yeah, but then this one continues to generate value as long as you keep it alive, and I think that's potentially really strong if you can do that.
You
The
can
other thing
change
is
up,
this
you can change
stacks.
up you can change up targets. Yeah, it also stacks, but you can also change up targets even more. So it has pros or cons compared to Skinworm, and how to use is considerably. Do you rely on the ambush unit? Do you play Eagleist? Certain questions regarding deck building and what your focus is.
I think it's a very reasonable card. You could also compare it to the
Definitely.
3 mana, just deal 4, and if it's dead, banish it card. This one's a lot slower, but it has the potential to become a lot stronger if you keep it alive, and I think that's basically my take on it.
Yeah, and it's more. I liked all the flexible combo shenanigans you could pull with it.
Ah, it's a meme. You're not going to deal 1 damage to your guy just so that it can deal another damage to itself at the end of the turn. There's nothing that's going to be worth it to set that up.
Gamburu? Get him under to where he gets his overrun ability? Anyways. Okay, Medona Tarrae. I've affectionately started calling it Baby President. That is an in-joke on the Discord. So, Baby President is a 5-drop strength 3/4 demon president from Tutela. It has summon untargetable for 1 turn only. And then, now this is the fun part, guys. At the end of the turn, keep all your mana for next turn. If the amount kept is 18 or more, remove this ability and all of your opponent's max mana. And it has active +1 max mana. So this is a stocks meme. Let's ramp up in strength. How viable is this? Because strength is usually pretty aggro. So this is kind of pulling in a weird direction for me.
Did you forget Promo exists for a moment?
Yeah, Promo.
Excuse
but
me?
actually, I think this, depending on the way this effect works, I'd have to actually go test this. Does this shut off promos active? Or
No.
Nope.
Okay.
You're adding mana to your mana pool each turn.
Stonks.
And the funny thing is, you can actually play it. We had already discussion because it's, I think, the 3rd or 4th iteration of the card now, from where it started out. You could basically play it potentially on turn 10 with a lot of with a few more doubloons. Play it. It has untargetable. You're getting your mana off. Get into the next turn. Regarding how your opponent reacts, you can basically try to either make it untargetable with weaponize, because we're talking permor, so or even put a warding wall on it, and basically see if you can start out a new turn and win off that. Because you're basically saving more than just your max mana in that turn, and it would be a 2-turn clock. Otherwise, you could actually try to work towards you play it sooner to work towards your max mana pool, ramp even more up, and in that case, it's more of a tool that you can slot into a perma control deck, which already has Plasma Dragon, gains Argos next month, and so on and so forth.
I mean,
so how I'm running this card, I see what you're saying about most of what we're going to do is kind of promo, kind of ramp up type shenanigans. I'm already at turn 5 doing so, but maybe let's hold off on whether or not that could work. Am I trying to do the special start my opponent back at square one thing? Is that how I want to? Do I want to win with Medona Tarrae?
As I said, you're doing this probably as a late game finisher in a control deck. So turn 10, play this, a bunch of doubloons.
I think if it's me, I want to play this on turn 3 as I didn't draw Vanarad Leveler turn 2, save coin, turn 3, play Medona Tarrae. Then either way, I have 1 more mana than my opponent. And I think that, it's not just that you gain another mana like the Leveler does. This one, it's an active gain of mana. So if they don't kill it, I can gain another mana. I think that's how I'd mostly want to use this. I mean, basically win the game effect. It's really cool. But in practical terms, that's something that I maybe do at the end of the game with the card that I run for other reasons, because of its baseline value, I think. And I think active gain 1 mana. Like if you ignore the second part of the card, right? It's summon untargetable this turn, active gain a mana. I think that's pretty strong, right? Like you can just play this on turn 3 in Proma using 2 coins. Then on the next turn you can start ramping and start out +1 over the opponent, +2 over the opponent. By the time your opponent's on 7 mana, you'll be on 11 plus coins if they don't deal with this. And they could deal with this. So, I mean, I'd rather have Leveler, but the problem with Leveler is that if you don't play it on exactly turn 2 or 3, it's terrible. But this, you have 8 mana remaining, and randomly you have 5 mana left after you do what you want to do because you want to save 3 mana for hard removal. You play this, and then it's still really good. You can still gain a max mana over the opponent. It's not a dead card in your hand. And then it has the win the game ability. If they can't deal with this and you keep gaining stonks, then basically you win. Like, may as well say you win. Like, they start at mana equals 0. Yeah, you win. They cannot beat you.
Yeah, I like this effect. This is going to be Tutella's legendary, so please, guys, seriously consider upvoting it so that Bonk can finish out an age. So I think this one was my last pick for the week. I wanted to talk about Lisica's prediction. So Lisica's prediction is a 1-drop spirit action from Curator. And it says, blindly choose a card in your opponent's hand to discard. I want to be clear about how this effect works because some people were confused. You get a bunch of these little placeholder things that tell you which card is the furthest right and which card is the furthest left. And obviously. Now, given those options, you can pick one for them to discard. And you're like, well, stranger, that's just a random discard. It isn't, and here's why. Cards in Collective are ordered from oldest to newest. So you can gain any information you've picked up about the relative ordering of their cards in order to influence your decision, including if you have something like Inquisitive Visitor, you can use basically all the information from their hand. So I think this is super cool. It's also a 1-drop spirit discard, so this is 1-for-1. This is pretty much as efficient as discard's going to get. I think it's super neat. I actually wanted to ask Grief specifically what you thought about this one.
What can I say? It's more hand disruption. I like hand disruption. It's super good at one. A voter's card. I like the art. No, it's the thing is, it's probably going to be pretty much a staple in any kind of disruption plan, because any kind of hand information like Mr. Stayer, or even at a point where we have Eidolon, Terror, etc., just picking from the hand, even if you're playing it blind, at some point your opponent will probably only have 1 to 2 cards left in their hand, even sure, you could either play the guessing game or play the hand information game and get more value out of it. Even at 2 mana, this is completely fine.
Yeah, you get
as
a lot
targeted discard.
A lot of benefit
cards.
from doing the detective work, like dropping an early Inquisitive Visitor. Now this is kind of a package. We have Lost Cause. We have Acoustic Kitty got in, guys. I was so excited about that. So proud. But now if we get this, we are really starting to cook with gas on getting a hand disruption package together. What do you think, BGG?
I think it's pretty neat. You know, I don't think it's anything that would make me like some of these cards. I'm like, if I played against this, I would be angry. I would be angry if I had this huge board and someone played the 6-cost bounce everything card. I'd be like, this is bull. This is complete nonsense. But with this, I'm like, my card. It's fair. At the same time, I think it's really skill testing, and I guess that's really the thing that I like about this. I didn't actually realize how it worked until you explained it, so I'm glad you did that. I thought it was just like, oh, you see a bunch of question marks, and you just pick one, and you don't know. But now that you've explained it, I realize, oh yeah, you can just first of all, just don't pick the thing that they drafted. Already makes this way better than just randomly discarding, because a lot of the time you draft a complete nonsense card, it's not any good, you don't care about it clogging up your hand. But this card, you could discard the card they just drew if you're in a situation where you think the cards they have right now aren't saving them from what I have, they're relying on top decks. You take away their ability to top deck. You take away an extremely powerful token that they generate into their hand. If they play Pilgrimage, you can discard the Wisdom off of it. If you get lucky with the Initiative, if they play... No, you can't interact with the Amnesia Mage because that one's fast, but we could update it to remove fast.
Yeah.
or if they make the quest with the actions that puts the quest reward in hand, you could discard that.
Ooh, anti-shopping list tech. I like it.
Oh yeah, I was thinking about the other one, but yeah, shopping list.
So yeah, it's very skill testing. It's kind of tricky to use well, but when you do, it can pay off. Because even if you just aim at their older cards, that's where their net set's going to be sitting, right? Is going to be one of the oldest cards in their hand.
Man, I'm so sad I have this Vanarad Leveler sitting in my hand since turn 4. Discard. Ha ha ha! Idiot! Fool!
So yeah, this is fun. Okay, now this is going to be the start of Grief's picks for the week. Let's look at the Wisp Handler. So this is not a Wisp, by the way. I feel lied to.
It's a Wisp Handler.
It's a 2-drop neutral 1/3 Arcanist Golem from nowhere in particular. Its active is consider your rightmost card's affinity. If that card is strength, give this card
Nope.
What?
No.
Give it regenerate?
No.
Targeted ability.
This
It's
is
a targeted
confusing.
ability. The wording is a little bit
drag.
off.
Well, it needed to be off in order to fit on the card.
Exactly.
Basically, it's a targeted ability, like the
It gives stuff.
path. You drag it to one of your units, and then it will gain regenerate. Or
Yeah,
your
you can
unit will
also
gain
target
ambush,
this unit, but
and you can target your opponent's face, but that will only do anything if you have an empty hand.
Okay.
yeah.
So strength gives regenerate, spirit gives ambush, mind gives ward, neutral gives +1/+1, and an empty hand is 5 damage. One of these things is not like the other one. Actually, that's just super weird. So like ambush and ward are only, well, ambush is only relevant sometimes. Ward is relevant as long as it doesn't have ward. And then regenerate is just always really good. So this is Opera's design, so I'm going to try and be nice, but to me, this is too complicated, literally. Like, I'm having my problems wrapping.
Okay.
Well, it's complicated young me
Let me help you.
specifically.
Okay.
Okay. This card will always look at the last card of your hand. So regarding of what affinity it is, or what affinity you play the Wisp holder in, or the affinity of your deck, you will either get one or two of those effects, depending on how you sequence the plays in your hand, or it could either be even in Egoless decks, could either be always a +1/+1 effect to one of your units, even targeting this, or in a mind control deck, you can put ward strategically on other cards. Ambush is pretty decent. And the fact is, you can also put it into KM and try to operate on different levels and how to utilize those effects. That's actually not really that complicated when we're looking at stuff like Blitz, Wisp, and other cards that operate on those similar aspects. The most interesting part about this card is the empty hand clause.
Yeah.
Because you could actually, why did I propose this card? If you look at a card with just the empty hand clause on it, this is a design seed for self-discard or no-hand lists.
Yeah.
Where you play stuff like Island of Terror, one of my most favorite cards, that's why I'm talking so much about it, or self-discard, where you're just aggressively emptying out your hand in order to either get benefits from self-discarding cards or discard outlets, or with cards like these that basically say, I'm a 2-mana active unit that deals 5 damage to anything as long as I don't have a hand, as well as the player, my opponent.
Yeah. Okay.
Really?
This is pretty flexible. I know Zinker was pushing to, since he's the guy who came up with the whole Wisps using the affinity thing, he was pushing to have all these Wisps go in together into a bucket realm called Chromosome. If this does get in, I would probably suggest we errata that. So it's pretty flexible, I guess. BGG, what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, yeah, it's a pretty flexible card. I'm noticing that it's an active card, so I could put it in that deck that has a bunch of active synergies.
Yeah.
Regenerate, I think, is the one I like the best. If I give that to a duelist, like a big duelist, like a werewolf, and then I kill something, and then I give the +2/+2 katana to it, and then I keep killing things, and it retains its regenerate. It's not regenerate this turn, it's just regenerate forever. So I could give everything regenerate, and everything has duelist and regenerate, and I can just clear my opponent's board every turn. And if they're a mine deck, they're sad because it's a 6/6 that regenerate that they can never kill unless they waste their harvest fear. With the ambush, I think that's a lot weaker. It basically says you can use this active in order to make your hand, the card you just played, block instead of the Wisp Handler. I think that's a ton weaker. I don't think you'd play this in Spirit. I think you maybe play this in Mine. Ward is potentially very powerful if you can put it on something that needs to be protected. And you can also, like if you have something that has Ward, and then they remove the Ward, put the Ward back on, boom. Still there. And of course, every deck is going to have some amount of neutrals. It could even just be another Wisp Handler. +1/+1, not a bad effect on an active. That's the same as the Garlic Bread Vendor with no cost. So I think this is a pretty potentially very powerful card. It's got some interesting parts in how you got to play around it. Like, I have a spirit card in my hand, but the spirit effect is terrible. I have to play it, but the card in my hand is terrible. It's a card I drafted, and I shouldn't have drafted it because you should have thought ahead and thought, oh no, this spirit card that's terrible and costs 8 and makes all my plants 5/5s, and it's a 5/5 and it's terrible. And it's going to float to the left of my hand, and my Wisp Handler is going to be deactivated. So I think it's really interesting how it's got that way you have to think about how to arrange your hand. I think that's an interesting design space it's playing around. And is it the oldest or the newest that it plays around? They're both interesting.
Yeah, it should say, I think it's oldest.
It's a new, it's the oldest.
It's the oldest?
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember how they're ordered. I play the game so often.
From left to right is new to old. In the hand and on board, it's from left to right is old to new.
Okay. So this does require some additional thinking in light of that.
Oh god, card gamers have to think.
I don't want to do that. Me give regenerate. Me give ward. Me go face.
So let's talk about Dayling Huntress, which is a 2-drop spirit 2/2 Dayling from Swiatlo. It has summon, choose a unit to hunt. It gives friendly units active duel the hunted unit. And this is from the Swiatlo crew. Puaka, Wham, Super Sun, the usual suspects. Art is fun. I am so excited to see these Daylings. We already have one in the game, and now this would be the second. They're really cool looking. So I feel this is slow. Like, why would I want to give... Ideally, I only want to give up one unit to this thing. Ideally, that unit I want to give up is Deadly Nightshade. And then that's slow. Is there something else better I could be using this for?
Well, I mean, if you use this on something with 0 attack, you're not really giving up very much. And you can see that a lot in like a Bip and Bop. Or even if it's just like the Victic reward, the 1/2 with Deadly, you can make sure that you get your opponent is getting the minimum amount of value out of it. And this is something that, that unit will retain that effect. So even if you just give their unit that effect and then you can't really use it at all, later on you'll still be able to remove that unit. So you're putting a mark on that unit. You're being able to remove it eventually, and not just remove it, but be able to activate when damage effects on your units. If you imagine that with something like a beat monitor with the life bond, that strawberry thing has a life bond. The vampire card in strength, I don't know if you would run this in strength. It would be 3 mana, 2/2. It's a little bit weaker, but certainly you draft it.
So this is for like a Dat mirror match, is what you're saying?
It's a very interesting card.
The thing is that you can actually run it even in strength. Think of stuff like wolves, because now you can actually duel with your wolves, a specific target, because you can target basically anything, even stuff that like places. You could give it to giant creatures, and now your entire board is able to actually fight that thing. It's basically giving your opponent an arm spawn, which operates under the same rules. Just as BGG already told you, everything that has an on-damage effect or deadly or whatever will just get rid of anything that is targeted by this.
There's a lot of
Or
ways
even
you can...
or utilize it off as dealing damages, or just like wolves feeding your wolf amalgamation, because your other wolves that don't have innate duelist can now fight stuff.
There's a lot of ways you can
The
use it.
sheep
Even-
Exactly. Wolf amalgamation.
I want to run it with sheep amalgamation. I want to as many copies of my sheep amalgamation as possible.
Okay.
Okay, this is Flames of Envy. Let's see what this is. It's been a minute since I've read this one. Flames of Envy is a one-drop mind action with a very, very green art fray mind card. And it says, deal damage equal to your opponent's level. Cool. Obviously, so this is for control matchups that go long, I guess. But I can also use it to ping off an early board problem unit. Like, if I'm Vertic in a mirror, I can get rid of Setien. What else can I do with this?
It's actually at a quite peculiar place. It's an quite...
It's the anti-Ihora tech that we needed.
I'm going to have to go off camera for a minute. Okay, I'm back.
Okay, it's quite a peculiar burn spell because it's rather flexible at what situation you want to use it on, and depending on how, because I already discussed this card with WAG to get depending on how we design hero, or how heroes are designed for the future and how they level up, how fast they level up, how many levels they gain, just like KM that can reach level 7, unlike other heroes, and so on and so forth. So what this, so its impact is basically dependent on how a meta shapes up. On the other hand, it's pretty flexible on how you can use it as you said, as an early ping, as it, or basically as a burn, as a 1 mana, 2 damage, 3 damage burn spell that you could actually reuse or use later on in a control mirror when you're using Amnesia Mage to grab this card back to hand, where it has now more value. It is basically a blue version of Pearlmore's
Spectral.
Spectral Fire. So, but with the old clause where it can actually hit face. Because Spectral Fire did so in the past, now it doesn't, but this can, for just 1 mana. But it doesn't has but it lacks inbuilt recursion, so you have to actually work around it to utilize it.
Yeah. Is this worth like recollecting now?
Later on in the game, later on in the game, you can actually recollect it, or as I said, with Amnesia Mage as a fast burn spell.
Oh yeah, Amnesia Mage, definitely. BGG, what's your thoughts?
It's a bit weak. I do feel like this is a very fair way for a burn spell to scale up, because if the game is going late and your opponent's gaining those levels, you know, that's not really something like, all you can really do in that situation is wait for them to like get to that point naturally. So, you know, a lot of the times against burn, I'm like, I wasn't able to do the cool stuff my deck wanted to do because they just hit my face so much. And this one's like, okay, well, hold on, let him level up, let him level up. All right, kill him.
See, my biggest thought on these is like hero rewards. Like, I want to write to Setien Ghoul with love or to Cassiel with love and just get rid of those early drop hero rewards.
Most of the hero rewards have only 2 HP. Funny enough, they come online on level 2.
That's true. I think it's a bit weak. Like, it's 1 damage in the first few turns, and you know, I really want my one cost spell to be able to deal with a 1 cost unit that my opponent's playing. If they play like a 1/3, like, I'd like to be able to deal with that, and it can't do that. And then level 2, like, I see this as basically it's Fireball, but in the first 7 turns of the game, it's not Fireball, but it costs 1 less. When they're level 3 or higher, which I think is the most you can expect them to be, then it's
Yeah,
Fireball, and it costs
probably
1
is.
less.
It's a
But
cheaper
is that
Gen-
worth having to wait? I don't think it is in a burn deck where you're always being very aggressive. It's got that weird conflicting nature where you want to use this in a slower deck because it's scaling up as the game goes on, but it's a burn spell, so you want to end the game quick.
Yeah, I see what you're saying about that. I think that's a great point. It'll be interesting to see how that fares. Okay. The Cursed Candelabra is a 1-drop mind action with the Spectre type. Okay, sure. Let's do this. Deal 2 damage. If this is milled or discarded, take 2 damage and move this to your hand. So this is by Zinker and Tostalmo. Tostalmo did the art. They're friends. Recently I learned they have a YouTube channel. So this is just more stuff for burn. But also, what else? Also what?
This is actually a great card for burn. And second of all, it can actually hit stuff like self-discard and mill decks. Because this card can be milled off stuff like the Dreamer cards, like hitting Looking Glass, milling your cards, return this to hand, burn yourself or 2, because self-mill decks lack one thing, and that's board interaction. This is at least a 2 damage board interaction for a self-mill mid-rangey deck that's not Dreamer focused. On the other hand, play Golden Ticket, grab your card, mill your cards with Cursed Candelabra on between them. Get your Candelabra back for just 2 damage to face. You can live with that.
I like that.
In a burn deck, you don't really care about damage to your own face.
That's true. On the other hand, the burn deck has fewer matchsticks. Discard Candelabra's to Furious Matchstick, gain Fireballs, return Candelabra to hand.
Oh, wow. That's okay. Now we're cooking with gas. I like that.
Don't forget all the Starship cards.
Play Eidolon of Terror, discard a card from your hand, gain that card back to your hand.
Yeah.
Gain just 2 damage, hit for face, your opponent discarded a card, you gain 1 back.
Yeah, for self-mill and for discard heavy decks, you're right, it generates the free value. Also, cool potential maybe for the self-damage deck if it gets put back to life. Because if I'm running the self-damage deck, I might not care that I might not want to play this. I might just want to do that to get an extra free...
Exactly, to get the extra free damage to your face.
Yeah.
I damage myself for free. Wow, what a great card. What? Deal 2. No. Take 2.
You go play against the self-damage deck that Grief is working on and tell me that. You're right?
Blood Priest is a thing, so...
Blood Priest is a thing.
It's true.
Okay.
That's the thing about a lot of these when discarded effects is their affinities don't really matter. Like you could use this in a green deck, red deck, anything with discard just makes that discard completely free, except you got to take 2. But that doesn't matter in a lot of aggressive kind of decks where, either you run out of stuff or your opponent runs out of life. You running out of life isn't really an issue, and neither is your opponent running out of
Guys, Magic Dave.
Yep, Magic Dave.
Pitch this to Magic Dave, and you'll get your star chip and your cake too.
Yes.
It's cool. I like that.
All right, going into my cards.
So this is going to be the start of a BGG submission for the 2 people who watch my show and track that.
Whack promised me he will watch it.
Sparky the Royal Dragon is a 7-drop mind 7/6 dragon from Talira. Flying, and if you control a unit with an active, this costs 2 less.
That's right.
He's trying to play into actives from Talira. On the Discord for those of you who don't know. It's a perfect gentle dragon, not to be confused with Gentle Cat, who is an artist. So this is neat.
I like this card a lot. The Dragonspeaker Javynn deck with the Chariot and the Throne Princess. I think this would slot perfectly into that deck. I think it makes a lot of thematic sense. Talira, they have a lot of the dragon cards. They have a lot of the active synergy cards. The Chariot isn't from there, but a lot of the active synergy kind of style cards are associated with Talira. I think this is a really cool way of bridging those two thematic, themes within Talira. I think the art is really sweet looking. It's not my card. The only thing I had to do with this card is the person who posted it. They did ask what could they do to improve this card. They posted it last week. It didn't quite get in. They asked what could I do to improve the effect. I told him one more attack. It was a 6/6 before. I said 7/6. I saw someone was saying that 6/6 flying didn't seem strong enough. Now, because there's so much synergy with the dragon being so synergizing with Javynn, like I would run this even if it was weaker than that, because it's just got so much synergy. I would run it like it's just a really sweet card to have in that deck that's starting to become a thing. And even if it wasn't strong enough, it does a lot to establish themes. It's a really cool card in that it establishes the theme of Talira caring about these actives. I think that Talira is really cool in that it has this theme of having these actives with Throne Princess Alice and the like, Garlic Bread Vendor and paid actives.
I agree. I think BGG runs Kyungmi Chariot. What do you think? I just met him today. I'm thinking he's the kind of guy who would run a deck like Kyungmi Chariot.
The thing is, you wouldn't even care about the Dragon synergies in Kyungmi because it's just a tool for the Kyungmi active deck, and we're talking about a 5-cost 7/6 with flying. Even a 6/6 with flying is above curve for cost 5, even in mind. Most of the time, it would probably even lose 2 to even 3 stat points just for that. And we're talking Kyungmi. So this is a 3-cost 6/7 with flying.
Yeah. It's neat.
It's a 3-cost 6/7 with
7/6.
flying. 7/6 with flying, because you have your active unit on board, which is probably green or stuff like that, on your first level up.
Mm-hmm.
On level 4, or level 2, which is on turn 4, which means it's not really 3 costs, it's more like 4 costs, and that's the equivalent of a 6-cost 7/6 with flying in blue, and you need to have an active unit on your field in order to do that.
It's not a 4-cost because you're still having 1 mana up. That's
You're
definitely
not going to be able to use that 1 mana remaining on turn 4, and you'd rather have your Chariot in play. There are other cards that synergize with your hero a lot more strongly.
That's true, but it's also an option. But it's also an option because the 3-cost slot is usually, or the 3-cost interaction is usually used for Chariot. That's true, but it's an other side option that is now capable of, and that's early aggression that your opponent has to deal with because you're dropping on turn 4 or even sooner, depending on what you're doing. A 7/6 flyer that needs to be shot down, or else it will probably punch your face in the next following turns. That's a lot of tempo.
Yes, but you have to take into consideration that you can't just associate the -2 cost that you get from the hero active into this card, which is designed
that's the base.
well
That's the best case scenario. That's true.
Right, but I'm saying
again, it's still above curve with a 5-cost 7/6 even in that deck.
Yes, but that's only if you have a unit with an active in play,
which isn't hard.
You're not going to be running this card otherwise.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that you're not
everything
going to
else is flavor
super
text.
aggressive deck, right? You're not going to be this go face, because your units with active aren't going to be able to hit face if they use their active. This is generally going to go in a lot slower decks. And yes, it can hit face, but let's not forget that this is a 7-cost card, a 5-cost card if you consider this always having the active on, the cost reduction
it's not hard to just put a Garlic Bread Vendor on the board. Let's not kid ourselves. This is not a 7-cost 7/6 in no case at all.
The typical use case, this is an above curve unit, but it is conditional on having that active that you're probably going to have.
Yeah.
Else, why are you running it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Next down the line, Fisherman's Raft is a 1-drop mined 0/2 vehicle from Osagarth. Realm of pirates, fish, and crabs. It can attack because it's a vehicle, and whenever you draw a fish, it costs 1 less. So here's my question for you guys. Is a raft a vehicle?
Yes.
Really?
I mean, you ride a raft. You ride
well,
a
I guess
vehicle.
neither are bicycles, but it doesn't have any sort of motive force in it.
As the person here who actually studies transportations and mobilization, it is a transportation device.
Okay.
Using the medium water to traverse. So yeah, it counts as a vehicle.
It counts as a vehicle. Okay, we got that out of the way. Let's talk about the card. So this is basically a enchantment, quote unquote. I'm not going to treat this as if it's a unit. It's really just a floating effect. Whenever I draw a fish, it costs 1 less. This is bonkers. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, unless this gets removed.
I mean, it's a 0/2 for 1. And you have to have it in play before you draw the fish. So you play this and then your Whims of Fate, I suppose. But
probably.
I don't think that's a strong deck right now. So maybe they need something a little bonkers in order to really...
This and run 3 of this, 3 of Whims, and 3 of Plus Masaurus, and have fun, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds pretty unique deck style, like rare material.
Yeah, but not rare. Materialist material.
No, you could run that in that deck.
No, sure, why not?
Get the Mudbeard out. There she blows.
This gives some tools with like what else am I doing with this? I'm running the Dragon Whelp. I'm running. What else am I running?
You know, the Fisherman the Fisherman,
as many of the Fishermen that haven't rotated. Yeah, I think this is neat. Well, if you get multiples out and you have, there aren't a lot of. Well, there's a couple high cost fish. Big Brain is happy to see this. I think. Yeah, I think this is a really good flexible addition to fish. What do you think, Grief?
It will break fish later down the line, but for now, the thing is, it's basically just cost reduction, and we all know what cost reduction can do. And yeah, you're probably running it in rare material fish deck because rare material can reduce cards only to 1, and with that, it can actually finally reach the 0 and make a rare material deck good again. Yeah, rare material combo with Fate, with Fate. Bunch of 2-cost, 1-cost fish that could actually work of it. And if you play multiples of it, you can hit higher numbers that can be reduced. So it's not bad. It's just, for the future, it's a card we should keep in mind.
Yeah. And it's doing pretty well right now. We haven't talked about a lot of actual where it stands today. So maybe we should.
Oh, it's fine. It's basically it's about submission, so
17 and 77 is pretty fine. It's doing pretty. It could do well. It could turn around.
A lot of it is about in-game votes, which you can't do.
Well, yeah, but it's a litmus test. It's what we got, right? You don't. Okay. Patterns in Flame. We're doing a lot of opera art today. Is that just me? Patterns in Flame is a 1-drop strength action with rebound. Deal 2 damage to all players. Scour 2, and if you banish no cards, banish this.
Yeah, I think this card, I picked it because, I don't know if it's necessarily like the gameplay pattern is the best. Like it's burn, it's repeatable burn, it's, scour is maybe not like scour and burn, you just scour for more burn and burn, burn, burn. Maybe I wouldn't necessarily love playing against this, but I think that's really cool in the themes that it has. It kind of reminds me of, you have to banish cards from your deck. So it reminds me of like the self-mill strength kind of theme of the Tyrant Dragon. And, a lot of the dragon submissions that I had been trying to get in were about that banish from deck, and I like how it's like associating the scour with the flame aesthetic is also kind of what I was going for. And this one, I think it's very good at establishing that thematic and feeling like, yes, the patterns in the flame is why it's a scour, and then it's damage to players. And, you know, you have to banish cards from your deck, so it plays into that kind of theme from the Tyrant Dragon and getting your deck to 15 cards or less. Maybe it's not like exactly gonna make that tier 1 or anything, because it's kind of, you know, lost all of its tools in rotation, but it's something for people to look at and think, okay, there's some cool ideas here. I'm gonna make cards that play well with this patterns in flame. So it's a card I'd really like to have just in the collection for people to look at and say, oh yeah, that seems like a thing that strength can do, you know, deal 2 to both players and repeatably banishing cards from your deck, kind of thinning the herd and making cards that play off that.
I think this is cool. My thought is maybe like stuff like Flame Tongue and Strength actions. This gives you 2 good procs. It lowers everyone's life at the same time, so it kind of levels the playing field out a little bit. Maybe if I want to run a bunch of fairies, I can run this with Moonlight Eyes.
A lot of ways you can use this. One thing that's kind of cute, you could use this with Fortune Dragon. Scour the top card of your deck. It looks like it's 3 costs. Play Fortune Dragon. It's on. Boom. Flying.
That's cool. Yeah, I think this is really flexible and really interesting. What do you you like self-damage, so Grief should be all over this, guys.
Yeah, I do like self-damage, but it's basically another take on a Bloody Stream. But the rebound is basically flavor. If you're not caring about what you're drawing, then okay, you're basically thinning your deck for 2 cards and maybe trying to run for maybe try to draw into better cards. If that's not the case, it's basically just a 1 cost burn to both players, and at that point, it's just for the scour itself. You're basically just getting 1 use most case out of it instead of the rebound, unless, as I said, you really don't care about what you're drawing.
Wait, why would you not banish one of the cards? Like, what could you be seeing that you're like, I have to keep both of these cards?
It depends. If you basically run into a situation where you are, where you basically stack your deck for specific purposes or try to find specific tools and both are in there, you're not running it. Of course, you can always banish one singular card or try
I think it's very forgiving. Like, you only have to banish one of the cards. So even if the top card is something you really want, you could just banish the other card.
Yeah, that's true. But in the case where you basically don't want to really use it, it's also you're basically just getting 1 use out of it.
I think
it depends on the deck you're playing and on the matchup you're facing. So it's not really in general terms. You could get multiple uses out of it, but not that much.
I think you almost always get 2 uses out of this. I think it's very rare that I look at my top 2 cards and think I would always trade having that better card on like the second card from the top of my deck for having like the actual second copy of patterns, and then for the second copy doesn't even matter if that's banished.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is you don't need to on the second, just on the first, because I mean you're probably not going to be fetching this back from your grave anytime soon. You guys have convinced me. This is really cute. First of all, always gonna help Opera out. I love his art.
I love the art too.
And I like having abstracts. For some reason, my clicker doesn't want to work. Okay. For some reason, like, we need to get more of these abstracts in because they're really cute and they're really interesting. And I think looks like we had 1 more pick from Grief.
Yeah. No, that's mine.
No, we don't have to run that. Look at the time.
Not Grief.
Look at the time first. I know. First Chaos Curator, but still look at the time.
Okay.
The last one.
Yeah, we're running kind of low, so I don't think we have time for that extra pick. I forgot about Chaos Curator. Chaos Curator is a 2-drop neutral 1/4 Dragon Arcanist with whenever you play a card, banish all your other cards with the same name anywhere. If you have none, this gains +1 attack. JTAD. Highlander. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone wants to do it. Is this the way to go about it?
I think it's a pretty neat card. You know, it says basically run Highlander, and you can use this in like not Highlander. Like you could maybe like try and thin your deck for it, but you mainly want to use this in Highlander. And I think it's a pretty cool power level, very reasonable power level for a Highlander deck. And if it's not enough, then you can introduce more powerful cards.
Even if you're half Highlander, this is fun.
Yeah, like you could just use this in the Dragon deck I was talking about earlier with, you know, not being Highlander, and then, oh, would you look at that? I can, you know, kind of control my deck, because that's the other thing.
Oh, yeah, because the Dragon's deck wants to scour, so.
It does. Like banishing cards from your deck.
Grief, go. I think his video might have frozen. Oh, no. Did we lose Grief's stream? Oh, boy. Nope, he's definitely moving. Oh, my connection goofed up, people. Can you guys all hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay, good. I'm back. Grief's still deciding.
No, I'm not still deciding. I pretty much don't like that card.
What don't you like about it?
Okay, well, criticize.
Okay, to the point is that I'm not really familiar with Hearthstone's Highlander deck, and I really don't really care. For the formats there where I played Highlander, from Magic the Gathering to Force of Will, or even in Force of Will, where we actually have had a competitive Highlander deck, these kinds of effects were completely useless. Okay, you could use it as a deck thinning tool in non-Highlander decks, whatever. If you cannot really run multiple of it because it would banish itself, you cannot really, and even in a case where you're running a Highlander list, where you're trying to get multiple low-cost units, because most of the Highlander stuff that's currently in the game doesn't really allow you to aim for higher cost units, but for the most efficient low cost, except for Argos, which is a neat little finisher, but still needs set up to actually win the game off of it. In a dedicated Highlander deck, and even then you're probably playing a tree off of it, but whatever. This does really nothing for an actual Highlander deck. It's a neat little beatstick, and that's it. If that's what Highlander designs are aiming towards, then okay, good, people can have their cake, I don't care. It's not really competitive in that way. It's a fun little Timmy card, and I don't care.
Well, maybe the problem with it is that you can banish, like if you have 3 copies of a card in your hand, then it kind of stops you from playing one, because then you lose out on the other cards in your hand. So maybe it should have instead said, you know, accept cards in your hand or on the field or something.
That's the case.
Yeah, I think you basically have to be running a sack package around. If you're not running it in Highlander already, you kind of need to run some stuff to like sack this or get this off the board, so you can kind of use it to filter out maybe a couple copies of a couple cards and then do something else with it later. I'm seeing what you guys' points are, that like this could really bite you in the butt in the wrong deck, and I don't know if it's worth building around yet. So maybe later this submission will be cool. Maybe this submission will make sense when there's more Highlander cards in the game.
Probably. But for now, it really doesn't do much.
Okay. You can certainly run 3 in Highlander. Like, maybe you draw both copies.
Yeah, in a Highlander deck, that's 3 copies in a 45 card deck that you have to fetch this card out, and that's the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably, it's probably not like enough justification to run Highlander, but I think it's nice to have like a few cards where it's like, yeah, maybe it's a little better in Highlander, and then you have like just one card that's like, this is absolutely insane as a reward for running Highlander and like getting you to. So this could be like step 1.
Okay. So I'm gonna stop the share and we'll get to closing remarks. Thank you so much to BGG for joining us today. It's always great to have, you know, a bunch of the alpha players and me, kind of the new beta player. So one of these days I'll figure this game out, I promise. Yeah, we have one more card. We're not going to be able to get to it today. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, as always, to Grief, my faithful co-host.
Well, it's nice being here. It's nice having you here, BGG. Nice talking to you always.
Nice talking to you both as well.
Okay, then.
Had a great time.
Yeah. So I think as always, or I think we'll get going. And as always, keep having fun, keep playing collective, and do your democratic duty and vote for these cards on the subreddit.
See you next week, folks.
Bye.
Yeah.